No time for intro, Dr. Jones. It's Huy Quan month. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass excuse as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Porteous, and joining me today, his nickname in high school was Monkey Brain. Sweet Sean's a go-backs from the internet.
Mola Ram, permit to meet Kali in hell.
And he won't pull your heart out of your chest, just your eyeballs out of their sockets. Bruce Leslie.
And God is my witness, I thought inflatable rafts could fly.
Well, you'll believe a raft can fly with this week, everybody, because it is February, and since it's a new month, we got ourselves a new theme. The theme this month is, I haven't even told you guys this yet. I came up with this, I think, earlier today. The song of Huy Quan, a ride through one of cinema's greatest stories. We got from a childhood actor to an Oscar and beyond,
that's the
man.
title?
Whoa.
That's the title of our month. It has like 23 words in it.
Well, there's the title, and then there's the subtitle. Now, the subtitle's not going to be attached to everything. That's just kind of the first one here to, again, that's the unofficial subtitle that we're going with.
Can you say it again? Can you say the whole thing
Sure.
again, please?
The song of Huy Quan, a ride through one of cinema's greatest stories. Look, I had to find something that rhymed with Quan. Song was as best as I got, all right? I tried so damn hard to put
February.
All right, listen, we're moving on.
The Quanaissance.
No, we'll only know it's a Quanaissance by the end. That much that's what we're doing. True. That's the goal. We're looking to see if we've gotten to the Quanaissance. This show's off the rails already, everybody. Welcome back, Sean. She's been gone for 2 weeks. Say hi to the people. Remind them you're still alive.
Hello, people.
There he is.
This is I'm holding a newspaper up to let you know that I have proof of life. I'm here.
Thank heavens. But you had to come back because we are starting this up with pretty much one of the greatest movies that we could possibly ever do on any of these shows. We're talking Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Old Huy Quan was our 13 years old when this sucker started up here and everything. So not too bad if that's your first flick out, right?
Not bad at all. And the once again, the behind the scenes story, which I cannot testify to whether it's true or apocryphal, but it's another one of those stories where his brother's the one who auditioned, but Spielberg liked him.
That's what anybody needs to do. If ever you hear that a friend of yours is going to that audition and you have any, want or not want, you need to tag along to that because, by God, you could be, a Huy Quan or a Chris Hemsworth or something. You never know, man.
Yeah, you got a real Millhouse situation happening.
I said the line.
Don't ever bring your friend to your audition for some gigantic movie that you want to be in.
What do you mean you're giving it to my good-looking friend?
Bobby Lee did a great sketch on Mad TV where his friend was giving him all this advice on how to audition as an Asian cop, and it was all just terrible advice. So Bobby Lee went and did it. Then his friend was the next person to audition, and he did a good audition and got the job.
Listen, I'm sure that was pulled from somebody's real life right there.
Probably Bobby Lee's.
Yeah, more than likely. We're talking Indiana Jones this week, everybody. But we'll get into all the history. Before we do, though, I want to say thank you to people who support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. Pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. Dinger Zone this week, we're talking about our top 5 favorite Indiana Jones ripoffs, because Lord knows there's been plenty of them. And it's the show, the Dinger Zone went interestingly. I wouldn't have surmised our turnout there. Let's put it to you that way. I don't want to spoil things for the folks that haven't listened
I
yet.
don't know why I was so surprised that Bruce and I have so many of the same things, because that's kind of the sweet spot for Bruce and I. Like that's where our tastes converge.
Mm-hmm. We are literally the same age.
Yes. And so, like that early 80s like adventure stuff, that of course our tastes are similar when it comes to that, of course.
And I think this movie we're talking about today, Temple of Doom, is going to have a little more Gen X appeal than it does to those older and younger, because it's the only Indiana Jones movie with a kid sidekick, and it came out when we were about that age.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking watching this whole thing of like, oh yeah, you guys are about just the perfect age for this when this sucker came out. So we'll get into all that kind of good stuff.
take the darkest, most disturbing entry in the franchise and throw in a boy sidekick.
Yeah.
You go, Lucas and Spielberg.
Rated PG. That's all, and we'll talk about all that kind of good stuff.
The last one. Yeah.
So patreon.com/HMP, join up at any level. And if you're on the YouTubes there, why don't you leave us a like and a comment and all that kind of good stuff. Got a decent amount of likes and views and stuff, but no comments on last week. So just remember, that's an easy way for you to get on the show. You can even just say, hi, Mom, or something like that, and then force your mom to download this podcast. That's what I'm suggesting, because ultimately I just want to download from your mom.
I want to propose a new means of communication called Mom Talk, where everyone takes an oath to only communicate with their mothers via the comment section of our videos on YouTube.
There you go. It only makes sense. And, if you want to repair the relationship with your mother, links are in the bio. Or email us at halfassmoviepod@gmail.com.
I'm not even kidding. That might be your finest idea, Bruce.
Yes.
I'm not even kidding. Like, that's an amazing idea.
It's somewhat inspired by a true story with Adam's brother, because for a while I had a nice little online relationship where I would frequently have conversations with Adam's brother via YouTube comments on my channel.
Huh.
Yeah, Mark was a buddy via comment.
That's fun. Huh. Well, let's get into it, boys. Here's the IMDb plotline for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. In 1935, Indiana Jones is tasked by Indian villagers with reclaiming a rock stolen from them by a secret cult beneath the catacombs of an ancient palace. Very, very succinct, very to the point, and not too shabby there, IMDb.
And I just want to open up by saying this movie is set in India, and guess what did not appear a single time?
Indian people?
Leopards.
Oh, no. Woo! All right, let's move on for our comment section. Eats us alive.
I know how to get heat in the comments. That pushes us up the algorithm.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Start talking more shit about the Indian people. Good job.
And I'm pretty sure that was an African elephant, not an Indian elephant that Indy was riding with those giant tusks. I'll go ahead and get more zoology hate while I'm at it.
That's an interesting thing. I don't know the difference between any of those things, but I would surmise
I'll
that
let
there
you
are.
in a secret. I have no idea what the difference is. I just know that there's two kinds of elephants.
And if you stab at it, it's likely to get you, 50%, This is written by Willard Huck and Gloria Katz, who wrote American Graffiti, Howard the Duck, Radioland Murders, and in my opinion, they were actually the uncredited screenwriters for Star Wars. That's my that is my assertion. I said it. And there you go.
I know Kasdan turned down the writing gig for Temple of Doom.
Directed by Steven Spielberg. If I have to tell you who he is, you just need to turn this podcast off right now, go reassess your life, and get it together. Starring Harrison Ford, Cate Capshaw, Amish Puri, Roshan Seth, and our focus this month, little 13-year-old Huy Quan in his first movie role.
Short Round, a name that will never be forgotten. Like I'll be lost in the throes of dementia. And instead of saying Rosebud on my deathbed, I'll drop something and say Short Round.
I didn't realize just how few times they name him by his full name, Short Round.
Yeah,
because they're always calling him Shorty, always. And
which is appropriate. He's not very tall even to this day.
This go round is the first time where, because it's the focus of our month here is seeing his performance. And so I really kind of focused in on the character of Short Round specifically.
Same.
And because, when you're a teenager, and especially somebody who is a Gen X teenager, you tend to hate kid sidekicks and things like that. So there was a very large swath of time where Temple of Doom was my least favorite Indiana Jones movie, and specifically because of Short Round. But now that I'm older and wiser, I see that Short Round is actually the second best thing about this movie.
It seemed like a scrappy deification, if you will.
Yeah.
And I didn't like this movie for a while, but it was more to do with the disgusting dinner that they had.
Yeah.
But Short Round, I always felt pretty fond of the guy. I don't know, something about him. Just even when I was in that stage where I didn't like kid movies or kid sidekicks, I gave a free pass to Short Round because he could drive a really fancy car.
He could. And also held his own. That was the other thing,
Yeah,
too.
he did some karate kicks in this movie that I didn't remember from my youth. So the guy's pretty impressive.
It's also one of those movies where, for some reason, if these days, of course, there isn't a movie that you just happen upon. Like that's not the way that you view media anymore. But in the past, if there was an Indiana Jones movie on, of the 3 original Indiana Jones movies, if the first one or the third one just happened to be on, I would continue watching it. But this one specifically, I would not. Because there is so much about this movie that is just terrible.
And our theaters in town participate in like this flashback cinema program, and they've shown Raiders and they've shown Last Crusade multiple times each. I don't know that they've ever shown Temple of Doom.
With good reason, man. I mean, there's a lot about this movie where you're like, ooh, that hits wrong these days.
I will say that in my child memory, because I actually hadn't watched this movie through in probably at least 25 years, if not longer.
Oh, wow.
And in my memory, the gross stuff was a little bit grosser than it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, like Muppets gross.
Yeah. Like the ripping the heart out was way more traumatizing as a child than it should have been when I watch it now that I've actually
I remember hearing people, because I'm a little younger, so I was 2 when this movie came out. So obviously it was going to be by the time it hit video and stuff. So, but like, people had a select few people had a couple VCRs here and there. And so people would describe that, and like it was like the description of what went on in this movie when I was a little kid was almost a legendary thing in and of itself. And when you eventually watch it, like it kind of like, again, if you're a younger age, it can almost live up to that sort of thing. If you go in with the ideal of that this is a PG movie, this movie's going to scare the shit out of you as a kid.
Yeah.
Because it is scary. There's a reason why we invented PG-13 between this and the Gremlins 2 there and everything. We're like, we need to have something.
This was scary to me when I first saw it. This was scary when I first saw it.
It's probably fair to say I'm the only one of the 3 of us that's had a human heart in my hand.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it did kind of trigger flashbacks to this movie in a strange way, because that really disturbed me as a kid. And I mean, I didn't like reenact it. I'm not that tacky, but I mean, I did like kind of have a weird flashback when I was doing that part of my gross anatomy cadaver lab.
I thought you were going to say, and Mrs. Johnson, Kali Ma. Can you say that for me out loud? Going back and everything, like you said, one of the this is the least watched one for me for sure.
Yeah, me too.
In some of it, not all of it, because I was one of the few kids who liked Scrappy Doo, so to speak. You know what I mean? I did. I dug Scrappy Doo. I thought Scrappy Doo was kind of awesome. I was the kid that they were aiming for, and guess what? Mark made, baby. And so, I was kind of cool with Short Round. And then, of course, as you grow a little older, then you're like, oh, Short Round is annoying and everything because he's just a little screaming kid and whatnot. And we'll get around to my thoughts on him this time. But still, one of the main reasons that, this was always kind of a turnoff for me, frankly, is Willie. Just the constant screaming throughout the entire movie makes you want to jump out of a plane.
She is the worst.
I can't help but think the fact that she married Spielberg had something to do with her prevalence in this film.
There's a couple of things, right? Because if he isn't in love with this actress while they're shooting this movie, they're doing other takes because she is so over the top all the time in this movie that it's like you couldn't get it like a more a smaller take on that.
Yeah,
like everything is 211 with her throughout the entire movie, and it's just so cloying.
I can appreciate that they wanted to go in an absolutely different direction than Marion, but I didn't know the direction that we're going to go was from really cool to obnoxious.
Yeah,
and here's the thing. The character and the idea of this all could work, but like you said, Sean, it felt like we selected from the worst takes and stuff.
Yes.
It's like there could be a more subtle and nuanced performance in this, and even when they're they're kind of the game that they're playing back and forth of will they, won't they, and everything. She's almost twice as much as what Harrison's kind of doing as far as delivering what she has to get the point across to the viewer and everything. She's twice as much as he is, and it's not good.
My awful theory is that Spielberg let Lucas direct Willie's scenes to avoid conflict of interest, and all she heard was faster and more intense.
You know, there's even line reads in this movie where you're like, you couldn't do another take. There's got to be another take of this somewhere, especially with the I hate being wet, I hate the water, and I hate you. Like, get out of here with that crap.
Yeah, and. But here's the thing, too. It's the odd part about it as well. Because think about this, right? Because I don't think at this point they're officially together yet, but he's kind of smitten with her. We kind of put that one together, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of going through a rough divorce and everything, but it feels like he's treating this character like he's treating his ex-wife, doesn't it?
There have been theories to that as well.
Because like he is putting this character through straight hell. It doesn't really matter. It's just like, I want to see this character get another one over on him. And the fact that you're doing it to the woman that you're digging on is also a weird sort of thing. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to get in Spielberg's head as he's directing this, and I can't do it.
I might be wrong, but wasn't Lucas also going through a divorce when he's, helping guide the story on this?
Probably, yeah.
I think that it's probably roughly the same time, because Empire Strikes Back is really where he's going through his divorce.
Yeah, so it's probably pretty close.
Yeah, maybe this is a couple years later then. This is more like Return of the Jedi time period. So but then again, who knows when he was working on the story for this too.
True.
But yeah, it's like, and like you said, kind of George Lucas fashion here and everything, right? Giving us the kind of bare story and whatnot. And here's the thing, and I've always said this is where I think George Lucas shines. I think George Lucas is a fantastic idea man. He just can't always be the guy that you worry that's going to land the plane for you.
And never give him dialogue ever. But like,
as long as you don't let him write direct, he's good.
There are so many moments that are just great in this movie. Think of the bats, that scene, the whole mine, the cars through the mine. So much
fun. It feels like you're on an amusement park ride when you're watching that. I love that scene just as much as I did as a child.
Yeah, it's hard not to love that scene.
Always one I thought that I was like, how in the world have they not made a roller coaster of this at some point? As long as this movie's been around, and like as many different kind of mining roller coasters, did they make like a real proper one?
No, it was one of the ones that's like, you're in a movie theater and the seat shift.
Nah, the hell with that.
With the movie.
Now, you know what?
Like
hold on. You want to know, because I had this thought forever, because you see it in this movie where we're riding through the carts and whatnot, and then we do the big cart jump over to the next rail and everything. And of course, your thought as a kid is like, wouldn't it be awesome if you could somehow like replicate that within a roller coaster and stuff? And I don't know if you know this, but now in Nintendo World Japan, they've opened up a Donkey Kong area that has a cart ride and everything that simulates jumping off of one track and onto another and everything.
Wow.
It looks awesome. So that's a real thing now, which is so cool.
What I was going to say is that Disney World at their Hollywood Studios park had like the Indiana Jones stunt stage show. So they probably thought a ride would be a little redundant. That's all I can think.
Just feels like that could have been so, because you sit there and like they put you in the catbird seat there and you're riding along with them and everything, and it is super cool, and it makes you go like, yeah, dude, this would be an amazing amusement park ride.
I'm picturing something kind of like the Mummy ride at Universal Studios, but it's Indiana Jones instead.
Yeah, that ride is pretty great, and I got caught in it when they had to turn the lights on in the middle of it, which was weird.
Wow.
You're just like, whoa, illusion broken. This is no good.
You know how they have the room with the flames on the top and the temperature noticeably rises?
Yeah.
That would be the worst place to get stuck, in my opinion.
Oof.
Yeah.
Or by the Jaws ride, and we can't stop that big giant fireball from popping off. Why is everyone roasting? Oh, that's gross.
So when's the last time you guys saw this movie?
It's been in the 90s for me.
Oh, wow.
I would say, I'm going to say at least 10 years.
Yeah. Probably
close to that. Because it's one of those that you end up, buying when it comes out in a new format and stuff like that. And like, sometimes you'll watch it. I feel like I watched the Blu-ray when I last got it, but I did just recently get them in 4K, and they do look quite good and everything. Those zero special features Paramount, and plus, what did you print? Only 5 of these steel books for these? I'm sorry, I'm just going to get off into another rant, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm just like, it looks good. It looks good, but like I said, I usually don't go back to this one, but you know why? Here's one of the reasons that it starts out bad, because we start out on the plane there with the with our big time show from Willie and everything.
Yeah.
That's not a great way to start it out. Like, that's 2.5 minutes worth of song there. And listen, I'm somebody who likes a song and a dance in a movie, don't get me wrong, but that's not where I want an Indiana Jones movie right off the top. I don't need a 2-minute number. I want Indiana Jones kicking somebody's ass in the first 30 seconds of this movie.
Watching this movie for, because I watched it during COVID. I watched all the Indiana Jones during COVID, but watching it this time around, it really does come into crystal clear focus that, like, Steven Spielberg is from a different time than we lived in, right? Like, he likes big show tunes. He likes dance numbers. He likes the pomp and circumstance of movies from the 50s. Like, we did not grow up with any of that. And so to see them to have that in his movies, like, don't get me wrong, I hate the opening scene to this movie as much as the next guy. I can't stand it. But like, I like the pomp and circumstance that he feels that his movies need. Because when you don't have that, again, not to name check it again, but you have a movie like Super 8, if you don't have the Steven Spielbergness of your movie.
I think something about the whole Club Obi-Wan scene feels authentic to me for what he's going for, which is to feel like a Republic serial or something from the past. So it always works for me as a tone setter, because I've never watched it without the opening, but I just wonder how differently the rest would feel if I didn't have that opening. For me, it works. I don't mind it at all.
I think it's more maybe like part of my problem with it, because like I said, I don't mind the idea of it and everything. Maybe it's just Cate Capshaw's performance in this, because she's not the best of, like, she's not a great super singer or dancer or nothing like that, so it's like nothing too awful much is brought to the party with that, so it just kind of takes away.
I also think if she had sang in English for some reason, that might have worked better.
I don't know. Again, you just see old Stevie Spielberg just falling in love with that lady that's on screen. It's just like, God, that's my girlfriend up there. So okay, cool.
I also like the Club Obi-Wan scene. Reminds us that Indiana Jones is not a great guy,
right?
And he's also not a super smart guy for a guy with a PhD. He does some stupid things. He does some bad things. The one thing I don't like about it is it makes it appear that he's motivated by money, which isn't in any of the other films, because he's willing to trade a priceless relic that belongs in a museum for a diamond that's worth a lot of money. So I didn't like that whole setup, but I love the wardrobe. I love the atmosphere. I have a lot of fun when everybody's running around and he's behind the big circle of metal. Like, I like the larger than life stuff. But, everybody's got their own kind of preferences and tastes. And also it was kind of fresh to me because I hadn't seen it in so long. Sure. Not something I would be putting on rewatch like Raiders.
Well, to get to the moment of, why we're watching this movie for this month, the second that Short Round shows up in this movie, the movie kicks up to 11, like, doesn't immediately.
Can you guys? I'm a terrible interrupter. I'm so sorry.
When he shows, the second he shows up in this, you immediately are like, oh, this is why this movie's awesome. I totally like that. You have them falling through the awnings, which is fine. You want to put some Buster Keaton in your movie, go ahead, put some Buster Keaton in your movie. But the second that you see the blocks on his feet and you see that it's a small child who's driving that car, you're like, oh, okay, this is what I'm here for. And there is something so open about Huy Quan as an actor, even then, that you can't help but be ingratiated to him in his performance.
And probably fair to say that, given the subject matter, the style, the era that it's inspired by, both Spielberg and Lucas would have been familiar with the Spirit, right? The old Spirit stuff. Oh, yeah. And this is clearly an Ebony Black or Ebony White character here with Short Round.
Right.
He's the driver. It's all the same. The question I always had, are we to infer that Indy's accomplice inside the Club Obi-Wan, the Asian person that gets shot in the chest, is that a relative of Short Round's?
I don't think so.
I didn't take it as that.
Because as a child, I always kind of figured that was either his older brother or his father, and that's why Indy's now feeling like he needs to take care of short round.
Oh, I will say this. This is the first time where this line ever really hit me, is when that guy gets killed and everything and looks at Indy and basically just goes like, hey, I'm going to find out the greatest mystery in life right now. It's just like, oh my God. He's like, I'm going to die and I'm going to see if there's an afterlife. And that's like, if there's anybody that's going on the biggest adventure of all right now, it's me. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's having a great revelation just before he goes. I hope we all go like that.
And I think the biggest challenge with that Club Obi-Wan scene is we probably go into it expecting a cold opening like we get with Raiders with the big rolling boulder through that tomb, or the flashback scene with Last Crusade where the story is like a sub-story, then we get the real story. But I almost feel cheated that we just go into the real story.
Did you know?
Story,
I see what you're saying.
Bruce, when you were a kid, did you know going into it that this movie takes place before Raiders?
No, when I first heard someone mention that it was a prequel, my mind was blown. And
mine too.
I started thinking that tracks with Lucas.
Yeah, but I didn't hear anything about that until probably the late 90s.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, when we were kids, it says right on screen 1935, but I'm not doing math at that age. I'm at a darn Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
You didn't go back
do math and history at the same time? No, thank you. I would go to school for that, loser.
Are you paying me right now? Yeah. And so, to get back to the Huy Quan of it. So like you get a lot of information really, really fast. Because it's one of the things that Spielberg does so well is while there's action happening all around you, there's people telling you like their backstories and stuff all the time,
but they're screaming it at each other in a way that like gets across like everything, but also keeps you in the moment that you're in, which is what's beautiful about it.
And it's what makes Spielberg, right? I mean, like, I don't know a lot of people who could pull this off, but because he does so many like long oneers in his movies that like, because even in the club at the beginning of the movie, like there's not a cut forever, and then once there is a cut, then there's not another cut forever. Like it keeps going on and on and on like that, and because of that, I see how he's able to keep things on budget for his movies, because he's like, oh, we're not going to have to do any posts on this because it's all in one shot, and he does it all the time, especially in this movie. This movie is just like oneer after oneer after oneer.
And it also moves like beat to beat to beat without wasting time getting from point A to point B. Like it's time to get into the Temple of Doom. Well, we're in the Maharaja's palace and we walk through a wall and there we are. Yeah. And, you would think that you would notice all the noise and everything going on underneath there. You'd notice all the slave children that are hypnotized. But I kind of think it's cool that you just get there, get out.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. This is where I brush back on you guys, because you were talking about earlier, like, you can't go wrong with treating an audience like they're idiots. I don't think that Spielberg does. I think that he trusts you enough to know, okay, you get it. You have enough visual cues here. I don't need another character to beat you over the head to tell you like just how terrible the situation is for these kids.
Yeah.
Like you see it.
And to clarify my point, I meant financially, it seems to be rewarding, even though artistically it's bankrupt. So I didn't mean to compliment that, but I just meant like I've given up on giving the public credit for having any taste.
There's also that really great scene. It's probably my only the only Willie scene I like in the movie, where they're in the jungle and he's trying to make small talk with her, and he's like, "So is Willie short for something?" And she's like, "It's my stage name." Get it? Indiana? Like, and I've never caught that before, that like, oh, even in the second movie, they're telling you this is not his real name.
Right.
And as a kid, I just took it for granted that like, oh, he's got this really cool first name, but that's not the case at all. And they're even hinting to you in the second movie, this is not his real name.
I think he even mentions that it's not, almost kind of a half passing, like, yeah, me too. Like that's that's my I got the stage name, so shut up.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's saying to him. She's like,
right, but he's confirming. He's confirming.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I do actually.
and I never caught that before this last viewing, where it's like, oh, they're letting you know even in this movie that that's not his real name.
The
So
thing
cool.
that bothers me is there is extended universe of Indiana Jones, just like Star Wars. And if you look up the character's information, Willie is short for Wilhelmina. So I don't know why she didn't just say, yes, it's short for Wilhelmina.
Well, I think that it seems like if I'm to guess here correctly, I'm guessing that it's like those terrible Star Wars novelists in the 90s who are like, well, you know, if you've got this planet called Tatooine, then you got to name those sons. We'll call them Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2. Tattoo, like, that's so stupid. That's so stupid.
It's not as stupid as that time Manny Bothans died.
Right.
And that is
stupid.
not me making a corny joke. That's
I know.
Something that really happened.
I know.
Man.
It's really, really stupid. And so I'm guessing that that's probably what's happening with the deep Indiana Jones lore also, is you got some writer who's like, I'm going to high five myself on this one right now. I nailed it again.
Well, my favorite deep Indiana Jones lore is when paths crossed and Han Solo crashed his Millennium Falcon in the northwestern United States, and Chewie became the legendary Sasquatch, and he assumed a new name and became Dr. Jones.
That old rub.
The worst.
Yeah. But I do like the Dr. Jones, because that is when I first realized that, you know, he actually is. I mean, you know, we see him teaching class in the first one, but it's like when Short Round is respecting him and calling him that, I'm like, okay, he really is an academic and not just an adventurer.
Right. And again, one of the fun things for me, just kind of, again, because it's been so long since I've seen it and everything, what came off as, you know, the annoying Dr. Jones, when you thought about it, this time watching back, it's like, no, this kid has so much respect for this guy that he is saying, hey, don't you dare talk to my boss like that. All right. This guy takes care of me and everything, and you will respect this guy. And like, it's so much better just, you know, again, getting years on you and just going like, you know what? These are way better choices than I had ever initially given credit for. But again, we're working with Steven Spielberg, who's one of the best directors to work with kids and stuff like that. And his acting in this is actually exceptionally better than I thought it was.
Yeah. Also, my understanding is that there was incredible chemistry between Harrison Ford and Huy Quan off camera.
You can't not. I mean, you can see it. It pours off the screen.
At the Oscars a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You know, that he's still happy to see the guy.
Yeah.
And the whole scene where they're playing cards, again, might be apocryphal, but it's supposed to be a completely improvised scene because the two of them just enjoyed being together, so they sort of threw in a scene.
But I do love those scenes too, where you're seeing Harrison Ford in the foreground and Short Round in the background, and every time he makes a gesture, Short Round is mimicking his gesture, and it happens a couple of times in the movie where it's like, I wonder if that's something that they thought about before, or if that's something they found on the day.
Oh, Shawnee, that's a Jaws callback.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, that's a callback to Jaws.
That's a Spielberg. That's a Spielberg staple. Then.
There's little guy that wants to be the big guy and is watching his little and mimicking all those moves and everything. So yeah,
right. And there's also that other thing that I noticed fairly recently too, which is that Spielberg does that thing in most of his movies where somebody is saying something in another language. And to like kind of like church up the dialogue, the other person says, well, he says that he's the greatest, smartest person to ever live. Like that kind of thing, you know? So like the character isn't saying it. It's somebody next to the character is saying that. And so it seems like it's more palatable for some reason. And Spielberg does that all the time in his movies.
This movie, I noticed that this time as well, is that like, you don't make mention of it or anything, but like when the Indian folks are talking to him, we don't hear it, but it's inferred when you think about it in the movie way and everything. They're not speaking English. She doesn't like Willie. That's why Willie doesn't respond to anything. Willie doesn't speak. So she doesn't know the language and everything. And that's why when he says that at that one time that he's kind of referring back, because, if he spoke English, she would just be able to, hear all that kind of good stuff. But again, very smooth, slick filmmaking kind of way and getting around all of those things without having to beat you about the face in it. And certainly something in 1984 that people could still, not go, what, this is so weird and out of, place or anything. He just, again, Spielberg, he's deft.
Yep.
Have either of you seen The Faces of Death?
No.
I'm aware of them, but it was never a thing. Not for me.
Because I'm pretty sure it predates Temple of Doom, and the chilled monkey brains has to be straight from that. It just seems like too much of a coincidence not to be.
I don't need to be putting that into my eyeballs.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't need to at all. It's just something I'm mentioning when we're talking about influences, because it's a weird thing to be an influence. But maybe if you're depressed and in a low place, you watch something like that.
I will say this though, for if it makes half the people feel better, the majority of the big key set pieces for those were indeed fake. So,
Oh, the monkey brains that they're eating is indeed fake too in the Faces of Death. But as a child, I thought it was real.
But none of the I remember hearing again stories about all the monkey brains and stuff like that, and again it became such an apocryphal thing that is now especially in my 40s, I'm just like, who is ever afraid of this? What are you afraid of, Jello?
After watching this movie, I was frightened of, I guess it was a cup in our house or maybe just a decoration, but it was like a hollowed out coconut that still had like the brown fur on the outside of it. And it had a monkey's face carved in the front of it. And every time I looked at that, I thought of this movie, and I was really afraid of that particular item in our house at the time.
Can I tell you what my scariest moment in this movie was when I was a kid? Is that Dan Aykroyd's in it.
Listen, today I found that out for the first time. I'm watching this thing, and for whatever, again, the big giant gap, and I'm like, is that Dan Aykroyd's voice? And you're looking at him like, that is Dan Aykroyd. And you're like, son of a bitch, how have I gone this long and never known that Dan Aykroyd was in this movie? Unbelievable.
There's some moments when I feel dumb, and there's some moments when I feel really dumb. Until this moment, I didn't know Dan Aykroyd was in this movie, and I watched it literally hours ago.
It was wild. He's the guy that's letting him on the plane.
He's the guy who gets the plane ready for Indiana.
Well, I got to go rewatch.
The closest that you get, because most of them are fairly wide shots and everything, but it's clearly him doing the ADR and whatnot. And you can see just kind of the last behind quarter panel of his face there, just as he's letting him.
No way, man! You get a really good shot of him when they he pulls up to the plane, like he's walking down that ramp, and he shows up to the front of the plane, and it's clear as day that it's Aykroyd.
But it's a little wider than you would suspect, though. No one's saying, "Hi, here's Dan Aykroyd." Let's put it
right,
that
but
way.
It's not a wide shot either. It's like a 2-shot.
Crazy though. It's the first time I've noticed this, and I was taken aback.
Even as a kid, I wondered why he was in this movie, and the best I can figure is that because they put Spielberg in the Blues Brothers movie, then he probably has an affinity, and also because he just has an affinity for the Saturday Night Live guys, bringing in Aykroyd and Belushi for 1941.
That's what I was thinking.
You know what? Let's bring Danny in, and he can do, he can do a day here.
I'm not complaining. I'm just ashamed that I didn't pick it up on my own.
I wouldn't be shocked if he drops that little knowledge there at dinner parties and stuff all the time when meeting people. It's like, hey, by the way, do you remember me in Indiana Jones, right?
And we get the fun callback too, where the guys are swinging their swords and he reaches for the gun, but the gun's not there. That was kind of nice. I guess he didn't have diarrhea that day.
I like that. So it went from him being sick to Bruce specifically diarrhea.
Come on, what other reason could there be?
It was totally diarrhea.
It's just I can't fight. If I didn't have diarrhea, I could kick somebody, but no good. Bang, goodbye.
I've been able to perform physical feats with terrible fevers and flu. I have never been able to perform anything when I have diarrhea.
Oh man. Too many jokes. All right. Again, cool set pieces again with your kind of underground with all the kids and stuff. I'd forgotten that how this is also, when you think about it, we got to remember who our filmmakers are, right? These are boomers. These are old kind of boomers here and everything. And here in the 80s and whatnot, slave labor is on the agenda. Right. So
yes, it is.
So they are talking about that kind of stuff all the time. So this is very much also their kind of, little, piece for everybody. Just go like, hey, listen, here's all these problems and stuff, but they're doing it. And at least they're wrapping it up in, an Indiana Jones style thing and everything. They're not being too overly forceful with it, but you can definitely see them, kind of making a little statement at the time, I think.
I guess it's hard for me to really put myself in their shoes. I'm just so far detached from, their life experience. But I guess as far as boomers go, they're the better ones.
But you got to understand these are the hippie generation ones for sure, right? That specifically grew up in California and everything. So they would be the people that would kind of be on the vanguard of this and whatnot.
Very true.
And but also, we have the artistic ones enough to where they're not going to just scream it at us. They'll put it in, an Indiana Jones film and have that be a little, extra bit to it and whatnot. But I like the idea, though, that all the villagers and stuff think the demons are stealing children and stuff like that. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, I don't know if you call it a beautiful trope or a beautiful plot device, but yeah, it's a wonderful part. I also feel like maybe they were trying to perform an act of kindness by having them be sort of hypnotized so that they're not feeling the pain of what they're doing, more or less. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you could probably soften it up a little bit like that.
It'd be way worse for me if it was more of an Oliver Twist situation where they're just getting savagely beaten so they'll go work in the coal mine. At least they're kind of like blind to the idea with those glassy black eyes and all.
Oh man, but then like the kid like straight up dies in this film, and you're like, there's some stuff in here where you're just like, holy shit, this is a PG movie, dude. And there are so like you understand when watching this thing, because like at first my thought was like, I'm gonna go back, we're gonna watch this, and we're gonna see the heart thing and like a couple other deals that made people go like, oh boy, this is too much. We need to make a new rating. And no, honestly, it's probably the least amount of stuff in this is the heart thing. There's so many other things from like child endangerment and stuff to torture of people to like dead bodies and stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in here that would be detrimental to a small child and stuff like that. So I could only imagine. But when you watch it, you go, yeah, I understand why we needed to start differentiate things here a little bit between this and Poltergeist. Come on now.
Yeah.
They were kind of crossing their superstitious lore, though, by introducing the voodoo doll, which, is more like the Caribbean than it is Indian, best of my knowledge. But they have a little bit of fun with it. But for some reason, I'm totally cool with ripping the hearts out and hypnotizing the kids. But the voodoo doll seemed like it just didn't need to be there.
It's a little bridge too far, but at the same time, too, it keeps you being able to have like that young villain that, obviously Harrison Ford can't hit or anything else like that, and give up one more remote thing that, like, I don't know, it's just video game logic in a lot of fun ways.
It gives Short Round a way to save Indiana instead of vice versa.
Exactly, because you can't have a 50-year-old man beating the shit out of a kid,
right? That, and keep in mind too that like when we were 10 years old watching this movie, like the voodoo doll thing was the coolest thing in the world. And like when you're 10, seeing a kid have a voodoo doll and it's working on the guy, it was the coolest thing you've ever seen.
And if they didn't merchandise that was a major, major lost opportunity.
On a voodoo doll?
Yeah, the Indiana Jones voodoo doll. I would have bought that. It could come complete with like a knitting needle.
I thought you were going to be like, does Harrison Ford know I'm kissing him right now?
Well, whatever. Float your boat, man. There's no judgment from this guy.
One
I figure he'd rather kiss me than Callista
Indiana
Flockhart.
Jones.
Take that, Callista.
2 for you, 2 for me, Indiana Jones.
Oh man. I forgot about the our kind of what do you call it, the spike chamber there and everything. That was a cool one. Very, very well designed here and everything. I thought that was neat. And again, between this and when they're on the conveyor belt and everything, Michael Kahn's editing is amazingly good in this movie. There's so much tension brought up, and it's just like he keeps you at that just perfect little pace there and everything, squeezing every last possible second out of it. Then boom, of course, the saving blow or whatever it happens to be at the time. So good.
The only thing that sucks about the spikes in the thing closing on him is the Cate Capshaw of it all, because she's screaming the entire time. And like if you thought that the C-3PO in the detention center where you got to shut off the thing from crushing Han and Luke was annoying, well, we're gonna go triple on that, and we're gonna have Cate Capshaw just scream for a good 10 minutes.
I also feel like they do some really great sound design in this movie, and she just screams all over it. So you got to turn the volume down, and you can't appreciate some of the hard work.
Man,
Ben Burtt cried that day.
Man.
But you're so mad at her because she is being a giant baby, and it's like, for the love of God, there are two people that are literally seconds away from dying, and you're crying about Icky Hand. Please shut up. For the love of God, save two human beings and stop being a crybaby. My word. Unbelievable.
I do like her disappointment, though. I like it when bad things happen to Willie. So when she gets excited that the Maharaja is not married, and then she sees that it's like a little kid, I'm really happy that she got her dreams burst there.
An evil kid.
You don't mind when all the bad things happen to her, when the elephant's dumping on her, and when all the other crap's kind of befalling her. You don't feel bad because you're just like, that's good. That girl's been annoying.
Yeah, I feel like the elephant that her and Short Round ride are the Indian elephants, and that Indy is riding the African elephant. But I could be wrong.
Leave your comments below.
I like how well trained that elephant is, the one that Harrison Ford's on, because every time he gets up or down, the elephant puts his foot up.
Yeah.
Let me tell you
something.
Pretty cool, like a little built-in step stool. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That shot where he is riding that elephant and the sun is in the background, that is a Steven Spielberg $1 million shot. Yep. Holy shit.
Yep.
That is so good. Oh.
It kind of makes me want to ride an elephant, even though I know it's not something the elephant wants me to do.
Oh, I'm sure the elephants think it's fun. That's what I've gotten in my mind. They love it. They're having a good time mostly because I want to ride an elephant. But man, that shot is so badass. He looks so cool in it. The sun is in a perfect area. That's just like they just planned that out and just executed an absolutely gorgeous shot. I'm sorry I'm going on about this shot for 10 minutes, but damn, it looks so cool.
When you got a hero shot, you got to let people know that it's heroic.
Oh yeah.
Also, we got to bring up, because we haven't brought it up yet, is this peak Harrison Ford in the looks department?
Thank you. I was having the same thought today. Yes, I think it is.
There is no one more handsome on earth than probably 1984 Harrison Ford.
Dude,
insane.
Is just like he's at the perfect age, not too young, not too old, just enough gristle on him and everything.
Yep.
He looks good in the indie stuff. He looks good in the dressed up stuff. He just, like, the second he's on screen, whenever he's there, your eye just rotates to him. Hat, no hat, glasses, it doesn't matter. They even make a point where he's got, like, I don't know if they came in and did it afterwards, and that's why they had to throw in the ADR line about, needing his razor or whatever. But in the next scene, when he's in the suit and whatnot, he's got a little thicker beard there and the glasses and whatnot. He looks fantastic like that as well. This is top-notch Harrison Ford here.
Yeah, and Indiana Jones is always the best with a little stubble. I'll stand by that.
Oh, yeah. But he had a little bit more in that scene, too, which, again, I think is why they added in that line.
Of course, man. Of course. That's how they got around it. It's smart.
All of a sudden, we're not shaving. That's the key. Sure. But, again, Short Round, just so much fun coming in to save the day. And again, every second that he's on screen, I love him even more.
Yep. Agreed. And also the other thing I noticed this time too is that Indiana Jones appreciates Short Round.
Oh yeah.
Like he does like Short Round is doing a lot of the work for him, and he does acknowledge it, where he saves his life a few times, and they even have the cutaway of Harrison Ford nodding to Short Round as Short Round just saved him. Like it's like, oh, they literally took time out to have Indiana Jones appreciate that this kid just saved his life again.
They had this cool, like, their cohorts and co-workers, but obviously one is still a child and one is an adult man. So you have a father-son relationship there too. While it's not an official, it's not one that we roll into. These are two characters that love each other because they've been going through some shit together. And like, as much as they all try to pretend it's a full, buddy relationship and everything, that's his unofficial child, and it's really great. And you can see that when they're on the plane and like the kids fall asleep in his lap and whatnot. It's just it's so darn good.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart that the idea that was first introduced to me by Sean here never happened, and that's the idea that you flash forward 20 years and Short Round is now the adventurer and living the new role as Indiana Quan or whatever you want to call him.
That is literally what they should have done. If they wanted to continue this series on, that is the only thing that makes sense. And the fact that no one ever thought about that, like just have a badass Asian dude playing 30-year-old Short Round as the new Indiana Jones with the hat and the whip and the shirt and all that jazz, because that's how Indiana Jones got it. He just stole the idea from another guy.
You could even have like the introductory scene where Indiana Jones is now like the dean of archaeology at a major institution, and he's sending Short Round out on assignment.
Yes.
Yeah, you're just doing Sean Connery in Last Crusade, I
prefer more like the British guy in Raiders. He can blend in.
Malcolm, you mean?
Yeah, that's his name.
You mean the guy who got lost in his own museum?
That guy.
All right. Well, we're here on Huy Quan month here and everything, so we got to ask ourselves: is he doing it? Little 13-year-old. I would say that because this is indeed the performance that made his career. Certainly so. My gosh, this kid is just really kind of destroying it. And again, I really liked watching very specifically for him this time, so I could really concentrate on his acting, because we all know Harrison Ford's amazing. Come on, get out of here. So, but I'm watching him going like, let's see what this kid's really got. And son of a bitch, it is so good. He's really doing it. Steven Spielberg knows how to just get these things out of kids and select the right stuff that's going on. And just the right faces, and I don't know what he's telling these kids to make them say have their the correct face on them. But my God, do they ever do it?
Yeah, he's literally the second best thing about this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, and there's a lot to recommend this movie. There's a lot also, like, we didn't talk about just how much racism is in this movie. Like, there is so much racism in it that, like, we're not even pointing out that Short Round is kind of racist. Like, the idea of Short Round is sort of racist, but because there's so much more in your face racism in this movie, it doesn't even move the needle at all. But with all of those things being said, when the movie's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's real bad. But the good outweighs the bad for me. And what really outweighs it is just the relationship between Indiana Jones and Short Round, because they are so good together in this movie.
Are we going to do the thing about who else could play that role?
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, it's one of those things. This is pretty much an iconic performance as you can kind of get around here. But if you had to recast this role, who do you got, Bruce?
Was Ernie Reyes Jr. old enough at this point in time?
I don't think he is, because he is a little kid when he's in that Chuck Norris movie, right?
Yeah.
Sho Kosugi's son was making some of those Enter the Ninja style movies about this time. Maybe he could have done it. He's not a great actor, but I'm just thinking of somebody who's the right age and ethnicity.
Yeah,
I just go Corey Feldman.
I knew you were going to get there. Good job.
Yeah, but do you know where I'm going?
I don't.
No, you wouldn't, but you won't be surprised. I'm going to be honest with you, because honestly, for me, I was not going to go in the good column, if you will, because if we think somebody else could actually do it better, we'll tell you who that is. But if you can't, you go for the exact opposite. You go for who would you kind of not want to see in this role. And mine is Gary Coleman. Put Gary Coleman in this role.
Okay, wow. I was going in that direction and thinking Emmanuel Lewis.
Hey, listen, either or. Emmanuel Lewis would at least be sweeter. Gary Coleman would be a little asshole, though,
You
Yeah,
want him to be a little asshole.
Either of them could have played the role for like 7 sequels without looking any older, though.
It's true.
One would get a lot fatter.
I don't know. Webster was pretty.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, we are talking about Webster.
Hey, yo, you make a joke about, wow, you really like that Indian food, do you?
He's a little roly-poly fella. I love him. He's so cute.
And I was also very afraid of Indian food for years after this. Now it's my favorite cuisine.
Oh, yeah. You don't sleep on Indian food, people. That's some good stuff. All right. Movies come in only 2 forms, art or fart. Bruce, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Art or fart for you?
This is art for me. I have enough fun, enough enjoyment, and I see some things that for me feel authentic and feel like real art. I really think you take one bad performance and a little bit of depression out of this, and you got a fun movie.
Sean?
I'm a Gen X nerd. Like, of course I like this movie. I love this movie. I grew up with this movie. It's part of raising me, this movie. So yeah, it's art, man.
Yeah, this is art for me. My first Indiana Jones, was obviously the original Raiders on VHS there and everything, but in the theater, mine was Last Crusade and everything. So that was kind of my big Indiana Jones and whatnot. So it's definitely the higher up of the sequels here for me and everything. And one of the reasons why I don't go back to 2 that often, but 2 again. Coming back and watching it this time, I'm super glad that I did, because it needed a watching after this many years, because it's not as bad as you remember in some of those cases, and sometimes it is, but you do get like Harrison Ford, like we were saying, at the absolute top of his game here and everything, and the character of Short Round is an amazing character. He's in a performance that's fantastic, that still holds up. And again, when you got Steven Spielberg pointing you in the right direction and a good charismatic kid, boy, you got a recipe for awesomeness right there. And this movie certainly proves that. And those things jump above all of the kind of negative points that you might actually have, at least in my book. So. Yep. That is it, everybody. One down here, but boy, oh boy, we got some more Huy Quan here for you here and everything, everybody, because next week he's got a new movie that he is headlining. That's right. He's going from the little tiny star from Harrison Ford all the way up to being his own Harrison Ford, so to speak, here in a new movie called Love Hurts. That's going to be out in theaters, and we're going to be checking that out next week. Hope you can join us then. In the meantime, Bruce, where can they find more of your work on the internet?
I would just want to ask people to go on over to the HMP YouTube channel and leave comments. And I'll let you know that even if you don't want to watch the video, you can mute the sound, type in your comment, then move along.
Exactly.
So just leave us some comments. Let us know that you're out there. Just do that.
Let us know. And there's 2 of them out there. So you actually have even better chance to get on this, and maybe even twice if you're really repugnant about it. Sean?
I cannot state this enough. Same thing Bruce said. However, if you leave comments where you are talking to like your mom,
Yes.
Oh yes, that's the good one. We do need that.
Even if you're just using that as the form, like you remember when I used to do the Stallone connection and I would write it like I was speaking directly to Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would work also. Like you're speaking to your mom through the YouTube comments. That is the greatest, most fun idea I can possibly think of for leaving comments.
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's Bruce's finest idea.
So
Please leave a comment through the filter of your talking to your mom through the YouTube comment section. Please.
All right. I'm writing down, leave a comment for your mom. That's going to be the new.
God, it's so good, man. It's such a great idea because it's fun. Like, I don't ever want to leave comments on a YouTube channel because who cares? But if somebody were to say, speak to your mom through the YouTube channel, I would absolutely write something.
You've got your assignments, everybody. Check us out there. Subscribe. Hopefully I'll have some new videos and stuff coming out this week. I was sick last week, so we only had to get one up, and then I just went, oh, too bad. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking For Love Hurts in theaters this Friday. For Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Anna Portress, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.